Hello, I'm Max, and today I will show you how I made an anvil from scrap metal and a log. You will also learn two useful life hacks. Note, the anvil has multiple hardy holes that allow a blacksmith to install forming attachments. The hardy holes are also used in punching and bending operations. The anvil's face is made of an old railroad tie plate KB65 that was welded to a tractor's clutch friction disc. Such anvil can be made even simpler without adding the disc. However, certain vertical hammering operations would be impossible then. Even though my anvil is not massive, it is virtually vibration-free thanks to the anvil's proper mounting to its stand. The stand has to be properly affixed to the ground as well. Only then will most of the hammering energy be transferred to a workpiece as opposed to the anvil's movements. I chose a large log section to be the anvil's stand. Because my anvil will be situated outdoors, I debarked it and applied used motor oil. I recommend filtering it before use. A warmed filtered oil penetrates wood better, looks nicer, and doesn't stain once dried. Now we need to dig a hole for the stand. I used the section from a broken plastic barrel to edge grass around the anvil for easy lawn maintenance. Also, the plastic segment will serve as a shape pattern and prevent the hole's edge from collapsing inwards. I only spent a few extra minutes for the edge's installation, but the result is pleasing to the eye. It is better to install a log section into the hole upside down. You can easily tell a log section's top from bottom by its knot's orientation. When positioned upside down, the wood's natural permeability to water is decreased and the anvil's foundation will rot slower. Additionally, I stained the log's crosscut and its buried portion with a mix of bitumen and kerosene. This homemade hydrophobic mixture deeply penetrates and plugs the log's capillaries, protecting it from moisture and rotting. The next important decision in design is the anvil's height. The anvil's face should be at the height at which your thumb hangs when you stand with your arms to your side. Now we can install the log, keeping its upper crosscut strictly horizontal. Note, the height of the foundation is calculated by subtracting the height of the anvil from your total needed height. As for the metalwork, I welded the tie plate to a metal disc. It took 5 electrodes. Then I welded 2 sharpened metal rods. Each end was then bent 90 degrees to the disc. The bent rods will act as 2 giant staples to secure the anvil to the log. The overhanging portion of the anvil may need an additional support in the future, but for now I want to keep my anvil as simple as possible. While hammering the holding staples into the log, the metal top gets pulled down. As they hammer deeper into the wood, the tension increases. You can tell it from the increasing pitch in the hammering sound. It is not necessary to hammer them all the way in. This way, if the top gets a bit loose during heavy use, you can always apply additional tension to the staples by giving them a couple of blows. As you can see, having a supermassive anvil in your personal workshop is nice but not necessary. You can securely attach your DIY anvil to the Earth's lithosphere to get equal benefits of a massive and sturdy anvil. Even though I installed it into a swampy soil, such makeshift anvil works great, and I never had to reinforce the anvil's overhanging portion. This anvil design would work even better in rocky soil. If you watched this video up until now, you have most likely made the conclusion that while it is a good idea, I don't really need an anvil in my shop. I will attempt to make you doubt this conclusion. Frankly, I didn't think an anvil could be such a useful tool in a DIY shop till I made one. Using this anvil and a simple homemade forge, I made many of my tools I could only dream about before. For example, I forged this extra large chisel to use it at my remote log cabin camp. I also made an indoor anvil using the same concept, a metal top and a log stand. If many people show some interest, I will make a separate video about how to install an anvil in the shop's concrete floor, as well as how to add a silencer to the anvil. There are at least 6 interesting methods on how to make your anvil more neighbor-friendly. Using my anvils, I made this bimetal axe by implementing my axe balance calculations into real life. As a result, I got a perfectly balanced bearded axe that came in handy in the outdoor carpentry projects. Here is another example. This is a clogger's knife, also called a stock knife. It is an ideal tool to make large, well-controlled cuts along or across the grain. Note, unlike an axe, such knife leaves a perfectly smooth surface. Look at these shavings on the surface. There are no tears or cracks left by the tool. I don't think you could buy such a knife in the store. In other words, an anvil allows one to make tools with exact specifications that are important for their individual needs. Another good example is my two-handed bent carving gouge. I use it to make large hollowed wooden cups and troughs. Even though this dry birch's grain is so wavy, the gouge has no problem to take large, smooth shavings, leaving a perfect surface behind. It is simply a pleasure to carve wood using it. Here's a super simple project anybody can make. Although this door handle looks complex, it is perhaps the easiest metalwork project I've ever done in my hobbyist blacksmith shop. I highly recommend anyone to try making such a door handle. I also made a number of specialty draw knives that I extensively used in just about every woodworking or carpentry project. I used my homemade draw knives to build a log cabin in a remote location in Karelia. I also used them to make other carpentry tools and jigs, such as a shaving horse, a bushcraft woodworking bench, a lathe, a washing machine, a mill powered by a wooden water wheel, and many other simple things for my log cabin camp. You might object that one needs a forge besides an anvil. I will partially agree with you, and here's why. I made my first mini forge from a tin can and a small gas torch. It only takes about an hour to make one. Such mini forge will do for your first small projects, such as this small knife I made from a ball bearings roller. Once I needed to forge larger metal pieces, such as my bearded axe, I made a simple coal forge from 2 metal buckets, some sand, and an old fan. The disadvantage of it has to stay outdoors. My third forge was made to be used indoors. I made it from a tin barrel and a large gas torch. It is pretty much the same thing as my mini forge made from a tin can, only larger. Once I began to work on large metal pieces such as this clogger's knife, I assembled a temporary forge from bricks and some fire-resistant insulator. Now I can assemble such brick forge in about 10 minutes anywhere I need it. In other words, don't worry about a forge for now. An anvil is the heart of a hobbyist blacksmith shop. As for heating your workpiece, you can heat it up using a blowtorch or even a campfire. I have to say, even simple homemade tools such as this splitting froe will make you enjoy the making process even more. There is something enigmatic in making useful things using metal tools forged by you. Each time I use my pack frame that I made using my homemade splitting froe, I smile. Somehow I remember it, even though I used this pack frame for years and must have carried 10 tons in it. If you liked this video, perhaps you could share it with your friends. Let good people watch good videos. This is Max Igorov, St. Petersburg, Russia. And a final note. I only produce 1 or 2 videos max a month, And if you don't want to miss new content like this, you can click on the bell reminder for notifications. I hope to see you back on Anvil Comics.